If you knew me before, you wouldn't even look my way. If I had the nerve to speak, you wouldn't hear what I say. Time has come and gone so fast, we're not who we used to be.
And welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Steve. Steve, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, glad to be here, Sean.
The first time I heard you play, I fell in love with your musicality.
Thanks.
Like, you do some tricks with the piano that I'm like, oh, I haven't heard that way before. And that was just like, every time I hear you play, it's like, ooh.
Thank you.
Like, when did you start with the piano?
So my parents bought a piano when I was born, and my dad played a little bit of piano. So just as from the time I was born, I listened to him playing, and when I got to be old enough to go and sit on the bench, I'd watch how his fingers moved. And one day I guess I was like 3 or 4, started picking out songs. And there was a woman a few houses down that taught at the university, and I'd go bug her. And when I got old enough, she set me up with a piano teacher. So I studied piano when I was a kid. And then when MTV came out, I got into rock, switched to guitar for a while, and but then went back into school band, and ended up. I went to college. I have a master's degree in classical piano.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the cool things I appreciate about you with that knowledge is not only do you have that sort of background knowledge and intense sort of understanding of music, you have rhythm with the way you play, right? And I know so many people that have like technical ability, but then don't have that rhythm and soul, and you have both.
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome.
Thanks, and I have the luxury of playing with some great drummers, and I think that really.
You're not lying.
Yeah.
So, like, do you remember the first piano you picked up?
Yeah, the first one was that I personally bought for myself.
Yeah.
I think the first piano that I got was a baby grand, actually, that a friend of my wife's father was giving away. So my dad built a piano mover, one of those little things, and we went and got it and put it in the house. You know, you can't play gigs with something like that. The first piano that I got was a digital piano. Yeah.
Now, do you have to play differently based on the piano? Like, are there things you can do with the keyboard? Obviously, my synthetic sounds and stuff like that, but just like in terms of the keys, is there a different strategy playing a keyboard versus an actual piano?
Well, it's always wonderful to play a real piano, but it's like playing so many gigs, 99% of the time you're going to be playing a digital piano or something like that. And I try to be flexible and work with whatever I have. If there's a piano that's put in front of me, kind of figure it out. I have a Nord that I play myself. I really like it because it has, good piano sounds, good electric piano sounds, a nice Hammond organ sound.
And that's the one that you play with Vintage Soul, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds so good on that stage, too.
Yeah, and it's like other keyboards, it's like I'll just kind of like not do the organ.
And does each keyboard have like a unique sound?
Yeah.
Interesting. So how do you account for that? Do you in a perfect world then, would you have a different keyboard for a different song?
I think it would depend on what kind of bands you're playing with. I find myself playing in bands where, we want those kind of vintage keyboard instruments, but there's some groups that play with a lot of synths or stuff like that. It's just not what I do.
I totally respect that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
100%. Yeah, I'm a firm believer that there's no such thing as bad music.
Yeah.
It's just what music you like is different than what somebody else likes, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So, talk about, your idea about the crowd, though, right? Because one of the things I appreciate when you play is you really focus on the energy of the audience.
Absolutely.
How important is audience energy to your music?
Well, it's always a great big boost if we have an audience that's really lively and doing a lot of dancing and stuff like that. That's fun. But, as a professional musician, you can't make that your only driver. There are some nights when it's a kind of a slim night, so it doesn't mean that you should put on a bad show.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's 2 people or 150 people or 2,000 people. It's the same show.
Yeah, I think that's part of being a professional.
Part of being a professional, too, is the flexibility and adaptability on stage. Because, there are times where I catch musicians, and the group you play with is no exception. A lot of the communication on stage is nonverbal.
Absolutely.
How do you pick that up? Is that just something you learn along the way, or do you actually talk about that as a band?
Well, you have something called chemistry. Some of these people I've played hundreds of gigs with, if not thousands. And, you just kind of pick up little cues and stuff over time.
And what are some of those cues?
Well, like if I'm playing with Brian Foxworth, he has certain drum cues that'll bring in a specific part.
Interesting. So if you hear him play a certain drum beat or a drum combo, you know what's coming next.
Yeah, it's leading to a specific part. And that part could come in, a bunch of different songs.
Yeah, that is so cool. Sorry, but you're flipping my autistic brain, right? Because I always just assumed that the communication was nonverbal and body language. I never thought about music itself as a cue for the next thing of music.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, for one musician to be able to cue clearly another musician with, usually it's like a nod. Like if somebody's doing a solo, we typically let the soloist decide how long they're going to go with the solo. So it's like you play until you're ready and then give me a cue to either come back on the vocals or maybe I'm going to do a solo.
And do you find sometimes when you're doing the solo piece, because one of the things I noticed is the last time I watched you is when you were doing the solo between all of the members of the band, which I thought was amazing. But then at one point you were in the middle of a solo and then you invited somebody else to do a solo with you.
Uh-huh.
And I've never seen that before on stage. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
How'd you come up with that? Was that just something you guys decided that
spur of the moment? There's so much of it is spur of the moment. It's like with Vintage Soul or a lot of the bands that I play with, we don't even make set lists. We kind of go and just live in the moment and see where it takes us.
How freeing is that?
Yeah.
So you rely totally kind of on what the audience is doing and what you all are feeling that dictates which song that you play.
Yeah, there's lots of different things. Like for instance, we played with Vintage Soul this past Wednesday, and we're going to play with basically the same band with Lloyd Jones added next Wednesday, the Blue Diamond. One is Vintage Soul, the other one is Soul Cooking. And so it's like we're going to make a point with Vintage Soul to not try to really avoid songs that we might play with Lloyd, so the 2 nights can be completely different.
Love that. Because one of the things I love about live music in particular is when you show up and you don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I love that about live music. That's what sort of calls me, is sort of you don't know what the set list is going to be. You don't know what songs you're going to hear. Every time it's going to be a little different. Mm-hmm. And every time it's just going to be that much special. And I think that's the best way to do music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine people on the grind with the same set list every night for a year.
Yeah, I guess maybe some people are kind of cut out for that. You think about touring bands that are doing arena shows and stuff like that. They're probably going to do the same set every show, but it's a totally different ball of wax.
Yeah. When did you start performing on stage?
Well, when I was taking piano lessons, I started performing in front of crowd since I was maybe 3rd grade.
Do you remember your first live performance?
With a band?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in maybe I do. I was in the 6th grade, maybe the 7th. I was playing guitar and we were playing for this Battle of the Bands at a Scoutorama. So we were doing, this is in Lafayette, Louisiana, and Deep South, and we're doing Black Sabbath songs at a Scoutorama, and we did War Pigs. And when the singer sang "Satan Laughing Spreads His Wings," they cut us off.
What? That's wow. In New Orleans?
In Lafayette, Louisiana.
Lafayette, Louisiana. They cut you off.
It was at a Scoutorama Battle of the Bands.
Did they talk to you about it first?
Nope.
But they knew you were going to play that song.
I don't remember if we told them. Probably not.
Interesting. There's such an attachment to that song, so it's like it kind of rubs me the wrong way. But that's a different time, I suppose. But then, was there a time where you realized that, especially with the piano, when you realized you're pretty darn good at this?
It's always been my passion.
And when you're talking about putting things, so one of the things I always talk to musicians about too is the muse. Because I do believe the muse is a living, breathing thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do when the muse visits you?
Well, I'm always hoping that it's there, and I feel like there's kind of like a balance between just letting yourself play and kind of thinking about things like maybe I want to avoid a certain lick because I played it a bunch of times or something like that,
Yeah. I get that. And then, do you have a recording? Do you write it down? Do you do lyrics come to you first versus piano notes?
Are you talking about songwriting?
Yeah.
Well, with songwriting, these days it's I just play a ton. I don't do a lot of songwriting nowadays. And usually if I write a song, it might be because I have a reason to write a song.
Yeah.
For example, with our Mardi Gras crew, we threw a Mardi Gras ball one year, and up to that point, every theme for our ball was a song, and we could always just play that song at the ball, and there's the ball theme. But we had a year where we had a theme that didn't have any song that went along with it, so I wrote a song.
Let's see.
Oh, that long.
I love it when musicians are able to just come up with stuff.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. I wish I had that ability sometimes. So when you're talking about because another thing I always sort of ask about is that whole practice thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because even now with muscle memory,
mm-hmm.
you still have that getting up on stage is not just you show up and you play. There's a lot of work that goes into preparing and
mm-hmm.
all of that stuff.
Yeah.
How important is the practice piece to the craft of piano?
It's essential. For example, tomorrow I'm going to be playing with Crystal Lane and the Hurt. So, I have a set list, and, it's kind of my responsibility to kind of look at those songs and make sure that I can play all those songs correctly, So it's at this stage of my life, I'm not playing scales or stuff like that. If I'm practicing in that regard, I'm making sure that I know what my part is and then I've got it down.
Yeah. And when you're talking about knowing that part and getting it down, do you have the ability to sort of listen to the music, or are you reading off of the chart?
Usually, well, there's a combination of the two.
Okay.
Some songs, I can just listen to it and it's fits a certain form that I've done before. So it's okay, there it is. Other songs with more complicated chord changes, sometimes I might look up chord changes online and play along with the recording. That kind of speeds things up. I mean, I can certainly sit down and figure out changes.
Yeah.
But that's an easy hack that I use quite a bit.
At the same time, though, because one of the things I noticed also when you're playing is how you're able to sort of keep time,
mm-hmm.
and how important that is with the piano in particular.
Yeah, keeping time is important with everybody in the band.
Yeah. Always fascinated, just the idea that you have 5 people with 5 different personalities on stage at the same time,
mm-hmm.
and somehow or another, you're all get to that same wavelength,
mm-hmm.
and produce something that is technically a miracle.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Some of the most complicated parts are there are certain songs where we get to the end of the song and we repeat a certain riff amongst like me, the bass and the guitar, and the drummer will go on a drum solo. And those drum solos can get really crazy. So it's like just intensely listening to the other musicians and making sure that everybody's locked in.
And that's one of the other things that I wanted people to know, right? Because that takes time and effort as well.
Yeah.
Like trying to find chemistry on the stage, like you have built on the bands that you're in, that didn't come overnight.
No, it definitely took a long time.
And so how did you get into some of the bands that you're in?
So we moved to Portland in 2005. And so first thing that I started doing is going to open mics and looking for bands online. So I was able to join a band within a couple of days. And then I hooked up with this club called the Green Room. I got a regular gig with a band, weekly gig. So that was, a big step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then there was a regional act called Rose City Kings. They were looking for a keyboard player and found me. So they were fairly well established and toured all over the Northwest, even down into California. Went down to LA and played shows in San Francisco and stuff like that. And then, from there, I kind of branched out onto my own. I had a band called Atomic Gumbo that played for a while.
Okay, can we pause for a second? Yeah. That is the coolest name ever.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that name?
Just brainstorming.
That
it just
is
came
so
out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
So I fronted that band, and we played quite a bit. But I found myself really liking to be parts of bands where it wasn't necessarily just like one person fronting it, where you had different singers. I just think that keeps it interesting. And so we formed a band called Bertholine, me and Crystal Lane, and Dan Berkery was in it for a while with Rose City Kings. We went through a bunch of different iterations, but with Bertholine, there's an annual event that we do called The Next Waltz. It's at the Alberta Rose Theater, and it's a recreation of the band's Last Waltz concert.
That would be epic. When is that?
It's the weekend before Thanksgiving, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And those shows they sell out very quickly.
Yeah.
But there's like 50 musicians, all these different singers for every song and stuff like that. But it's a big family of musicians because we've done it for years. It's been over a decade now. And through that connection, I found myself in just a slew of bands. I play in so many bands. And what that allows me to do is I can stay in town and play, almost every night of the week. But I'm playing with different bands. So if people come to see me multiple nights, it's not like you're seeing the same thing over and over again.
Well, even like with Vintage Soul, I've seen you 3 times now, and it's not been the same show ever.
Yeah.
And I always appreciate that. It's like you never know what you're going to get, but it's always going to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with all of these bands that you're in, with all of the venues that you see, if you were to talk to a venue, what would be something you would say, I wish that all venues had this to make things easier for the band? Well,
I think that one of my favorite places to play is at the Laurel Thirst.
Yeah.
And the Laurel Thirst, we do these, I'm in a bunch of bands that do these happy hours. So we play a 6 to 8 gig. It's at a club that has really there's like an aura to the place. It has a nice regular crowd who are nice people, like music, like to dance. There's just a good energy in there. So that's something that I love in a club.
I like that too. Because I always think of like venues that have memory of all of the other artists that have been on stage.
Yeah.
And the more that those venues have been played, the better the music is.
Absolutely.
I really do feel that. I think you can feel it when you get into some of these establishments.
You can.
Yeah. And have you ever been to an establishment that you sort of geeked out? Like, I can't believe I'm playing here.
Because it's so cool?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that I don't get that feeling I know what you're talking about though, but like where you're there and it's like, this is really cool. I think about like playing big performances like at the Waterfront Blues Festival where you're playing for thousands of people. You know, that's you can't beat that.
What was that like?
Well, I've done it a few times and it's just like it's kind of surreal. I played so much that I don't really have the nerves or anything like that, but it's just so cool to look over and see thousands of people jam into what you're playing.
That just the idea of you're up on stage and watching thousands or 2,000 people rocking in unison.
Yeah.
And dancing in unison. That's got to be trippy.
Yeah, it's great.
Like, how do you contain yourself?
You don't. That's a beautiful thing about music. You're not supposed to contain yourself.
Oh, that's fair, right? Because like it's counterintuitive. Because like in this podcast, I geek out sometimes when I interview musicians just because I'm in awe, and I have to like calm myself before everything. I would imagine it's exactly the opposite on stage, where, like,
right?
you
Because
tap into that energy.
Absolutely, because you want to fire people up or give them some other emotion. But but you definitely want there to be the emotion.
And like, how important is it to you? Because one of the things I also appreciate when you're up on stage and playing is that you have moments in songs where you have seconds of silence. Mm-hmm. How important are those seconds of silence?
Yeah, well, the funk lives in the silence.
Tell me more.
Yeah, it's like you just can't have. I mean, you can have a big wall of sound. Sometimes that's appropriate. But the negative space is just as important.
Because it sort of impacts the brain in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things the brain looks for is tries to latch on to patterns. And you can latch on to a pattern, and then when there's a deviation from the pattern, it makes the brain you kind of tilt your head a little bit.
Where to go?
Yeah.
Where to go? I know exactly what you mean. Because for me, because I'm autistic, my brain always is in extreme pattern recognition mode. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I'm listening to music that has a break in that pattern, I always have like a soft spot for that. Because it's like, oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And how important is like volume?
Yeah, volume is a tough thing.
Yeah.
I play with a lot of loud bands, and I can control myself.
Yeah.
So, I try to make sure that, other people in the band might be blasting it. I can't control other people, but I can control myself.
And because you don't want to blast people's eardrums completely out if you can avoid it.
You don't, and if you're playing in a bar, you want bartenders to be able to hear what's being ordered.
Right. And the other thing too is because one of those things that I want to reiterate too, from the fans' perspective, is that once the show is over, you all are approachable.
Yeah.
Like, you like it when people come up and say nice job or nice show, stuff like that. So don't be afraid, y'all. Go up and say hi to the band afterwards. Except for the drummer, let him tear down first.
Yeah.
But what is the best part about the show sort of environment for you?
Well, for me, I think it's just amazing that I could do something that I love and hang out with people that I really like and somehow get paid for it.
And it's such a rare thing these days. Because I know so many musicians in this area that need day jobs. Mm-hmm. And I can only imagine how amazingly free it is.
Yeah.
To just do music.
Yeah. I used to teach piano lessons. Mm-hmm. From when I moved here until, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
I think that I got to the point where I could just play music. I think it really started around COVID, oddly enough. During COVID, it's like we got really creative with what we were doing. I did a daily live stream on Facebook every day for an entire year. We also, created videos, and we did, outdoor shows and stuff like that. So I think it's around during that time that I really started joining a bunch of different bands. And then when places kind of started doing the soft reopen, I was just in there a lot.
And when you're talking about that live stream, right? Were you doing like live music as well?
Yeah.
How did you get that done? Because like I've been trying to do live music on this podcast for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I have the great mics for this sort of conversation, but every time I try to incorporate live music into it.
Well, this is what I did. So, once everything shut down, Vintage Soul and Soul Cooking actually, we did one band one night, one band the next night as a live stream on Facebook. And I think that we were the first two bands to do it in Portland. We actually had a news station that came out and did a story on us. Yeah. So when we did it, they just set up a mic on a tripod and pressed play. And I don't even remember if they even had another mic that they used. It was that simple. And we managed to raise a lot of money. So I was like, I can do that. So I basically just had a little clip-on mic, and my wife would press play, and I'd be sitting at the piano and do a handful of songs.
And how long so like when you're talking about like picking up, so let me pause for a second. Because if you're talking from the perspective of like a piano teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's sort of like interested in the piano as a possible instrument.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to people who want to start?
Well, you have to practice a lot. You have to be patient with yourself. Playing with a metronome is really good for working on your sense of rhythm.
Is that like a click track almost?
It's just a click, and a steady click, and you set it to a certain speed and play along with it.
How valuable was that in your development?
I think that it's kind of essential, and one of the things that can be really hard to do, but if you're trying to learn something that's very difficult, if you can slow it down to where you can get it right, and it's like you really want to be, if you're doing something like classical music, you want to be doing the same fingerings every time, and you want to make sure you can nail it at a slow tempo before you gradually move it up to the correct tempo.
Interesting. So instead of like trying to like mimic something that's like mastered already, slowing it down like half speed and like getting all of the keys right,
Mm-hmm.
and then work on increasing the tempo.
Yeah. So like an example, I talked about this next waltz show that we do. I do the Dr. John's part of it. He did Such a Night at the last waltz, and he has this piano solo at the end. It's really cool, and it's very, very distinctive. Well, I sing it in a different key, so I had to write it out like he did it because I wanted to do it just like him. It's just such a cool part, and then I had to transpose it to my key, and then go through that thing that I'm talking about where I slowed it down a bunch, got to where I could play it slowly, and bit by bit got it up to the proper tempo.
That's fascinating. What did that take?
Oh, it took a lot of diligence.
Yeah. Hours and hours and hours, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's fascinating. Like,
And then it's like, there a lot of times we're just improvising, though.
yeah.
Where it's like, it's funny. There are certain songs where I will play specific parts, and then other ones where it's just like, try to make it a little different every time.
And do you like have an idea beforehand that that's going to happen, or are you just kind of like...
Yeah, I think there are some songs, like if we're doing Hey Pac Away by the Meters, I tend to go into there's an Allman Brothers Jessica, the piano solo from Jessica that I tend to stick in there, and I tend to do it most of the time.
And I get what you're saying. Because, and then of course there's those some songs where like if you change it up, people actually get upset.
Mm-hmm.
Like if somebody changes the guitar solo from Sweet Child of Mine, it doesn't matter which band you are, or if you're trying to change that opening one. Ooh,
right, because people are singing along to that.
Like, how hard is it to adjust the key on? Like, because like you kind of have to restructure everything. Right?
I think it just depends on the song. Like, I have this weekly gig that I do at this McMiniman's called the Chapel Pub. The building came with a pipe organ. It's a real pipe organ. I play it every Thursday night. I've done it for years. And I noticed that there are some songs where, like you said, if I'm doing Sweet Child of Mine, I'm going to do that solo just like it goes. If I'm doing Crazy Train, I'm going to do the guitar solo like it goes. But if I'm doing Green Onions, it's kind of in that song should be improvised. There's a head to it, but then you should improvise.
That's sort of because I could see that sort of like with a couple of Jimi Hendrix songs too, where like if you're like along the Watchtower, you probably can get away with a lot more flexibility. I think if you're playing the Star Spangled Banner, you have to go note for note.
Yeah, it depends on the song.
Yeah, interesting. And how long did it take to sort of develop that ability to sort of figure that piece out? Because that's a talent in of itself.
Yeah, I think that as a musician, you're always figuring things out, and hopefully you're always getting better. So and it's one of those things where it's kind of like, music doesn't really have a right and a wrong.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Because like if everybody jokes that I don't say everybody, but a lot of people who know me joke that my iPod, the music list on my phone is so eclectic. And some of the songs on there, like, you like that? I'm like, yeah, I like that. Are you kidding? It doesn't matter what language it's in. That's freaking talent.
It's like food, It's like, you might like one thing and I might hate it. It's like my wife doesn't like red lettuce.
Yeah. Well, and like the example, and I'm sure people are probably tired of me telling me this example, but the first album I ever bought was Metallica Black. And I bought it because of the album cover. I had no idea what the music was.
Yeah.
And I hated it that first time.
That's funny. I had an experience like that where I got the Meatloaf album, Bat Out of Hell.
Yeah.
I was into like heavy metal and stuff like that. And that name, Bat Out of Hell, that sounds cool. And then I put it on and it was not what I was wanting.
Yeah. I had no experience with music. Like my dad was not a big music person. Music was not an influential piece of my life until 16 years old. The first thing I did when I got my first paycheck from McDonald's was buy a little cassette recorder or a cassette player, a CD player, and that CD. And it wasn't until the fifth time I listened to it that I figured out, oh, we're supposed to have these feelings of anger and upset and anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I didn't make the connection between emotions and music until that moment in time.
Yeah.
And that changed the game for me. Because, like, music without emotion, I don't know what that would be like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things I'm fascinated with is just like the blues and the emotion that's along with blues.
Yeah.
How did you get into sort of like the blues genre?
So when I got my master's in classical piano, then I had to start joining bands and getting gigs and stuff like that. And my first band after college was a country band. It's like, really, whatever, just get me work. But I started playing at this jazz and blues club. And, so I got to work on my blues. And then there was they brought in some older people of color that played, that were just steeped in it. And there was this fella named Big Daddy Harry Hippolyte. He was just a wonderful guy and a great blues player. He was kind of having a resurgence. And I actually got to play at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival with him before I moved up here, which was just, that was a highlight. Yeah. Got to play a grand piano for that one.
Oh, so awesome. And so, like, with your background in blues, and then you come up to here, one of the things that I hear repeatedly is how different the blues community is up here versus other places. Because apparently, like, here, and especially in the Portlands, everybody sort of supports and loves each other. And there's no real, like, competition feeling.
Yeah.
How important is that for a music scene?
Well, I think it's just fantastic. It's not like that everywhere. A lot of places you have musicians that are really trying to one-up each other, and it's like a fight. Here, it's like we really do work in cooperation with one another, and it's like, we find ourselves playing in different combinations of musicians doing different sets of songs and different styles and stuff like that. And, we also have a great crowd, great music lovers out here.
And I love it when there's guest spots.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Lisa Mann showing up once, and like, holy cow! Like you're on crutches, but you come and you sing anyway. And I was like, what the It's just such an amazing group of friendly musicians, and I love it.
It's great. We have this weekly show that we do on Sundays at a place called Spirits Pub.
Yeah.
And we bring in the band is Dave Collin bass, Bride Foxworth on drums. Ben Rice is our regular guitar player, and then we have different guests. We've had like Terry Robb, Curtis Elgato's been over there, Alan Hager's playing this Sunday. We had Duffy Bishop and Chris Carlson a couple of weeks ago.
Do you ever geek out when some of these musicians are on stage playing with you? You're like, I can't believe I'm playing with Norman Sylvester today.
It is pretty cool, yeah. But it's interesting, it's like a lot of these guys I've known for a long time by now, and it feels pretty comfortable.
Which I would imagine just kind of happens over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, well, when you're on the stage and you have like guest spots and people coming in and playing, like, do you like get songs in advance from them that they want to play, or do you kind of like have those conversations?
Rarely.
Okay.
Yeah, the way that it generally works is if somebody gets up, usually we're to call people up that we know. And a lot of those people have songs that they've done with us before, or that are kind of like a simple structure that they can explain in 10 seconds.
What do you mean by simple structure for those listening who may not be?
Well, you may have like a 12-bar blues, and then maybe it has a bridge, a lot of bridges go 4-1-4-5, or you have different variations, but they're structures that are shared by a number of songs. And if you know how these structures work, then it just opens up so many songs.
And so if you're talking to people who are like looking at or just beginning with music, would you advise them to like focus on that structure and get good at that structure first?
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
If you know what those structures are, then it makes it really easy for you to go in with some people that you've never played with before and sound good.
It's like Chad Rupp's
Jam.
blues jam every once
in a while.
and some of the musicians just get up on stage and they yell out 6 numbers, and that's all they need.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
it took me a while to figure that part out.
Yeah.
And so that sort of opens up the door to a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. And is it different between genres? So like, does the chord progression or whatever for like metal versus blues versus classical?
Very different. It's very different. Well, with blues, you have a number of these different structures. 12-bar blues, you might have an 8-bar blues. You might have a blues that starts on the 4-chord. Well, there's different structures. But if you're talking about Metallica, every song is completely different. And you won't find very many parts that are common from one song to another one.
How is, like, just imagining having to put on a show with that complex of music without like without an existing structure time and time again.
Yeah, they worked very hard at it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, my mind was blown.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's fascinating to me. Because then you look at a band like Tool that have some recurring structure, but at the same time it's so vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
And then what about like competing time signatures? So like when the band and when the guitar player and the bass player is on a slightly different beat than the piano?
Well, most popular music is either going to be in 4/4. Sometimes it might be in 3/4, but almost everything is in 4/4, or maybe like 12/8, which is just a variation of 4/4.
Yeah. Okay.
And, sometimes people might do some kind of funky syncopations, but I don't think that I can't think of a time when people are going to be playing at the same time in different time signatures.
Okay. terms of like live performance, and like going through like the whole sort of situation, and not situation, but like the whole sort of from start to finish. Has there ever been a part where like you're halfway through and they're like you see the crowd's not feeling it and you're like, let's change directions?
Yeah.
And what do you do in that kind of?
Well, if that hardly ever happens, actually. I can't think of a time when we've done that. Yeah. I think if we call out a song, we're gonna play the song.
But I mean, like you finished the song, but then you've noticed like maybe the
Oh yeah.
and then like let's switch directions and do.
Yeah, so like, a lot of these bands we played together a lot. So, when you're watching a crowd, and you're going to be the singer that's going to do the next song, you're already thinking about what the next song is going to be. You're thinking about it while you're playing the song that you're currently playing. You know, Played a show this past week where it's like, noticed that the crowd was really up there and having a good time and dancing, and it was like, I wanted to continue that energy. So I was like, what would be a really upbeat, fun song to follow that with? And it worked.
Just imagine the feeling of like, yeah, I pulled that off. It's so awesome. And because like people, and one of the things I appreciate about you and other musicians is that regardless of the path or their journey, there's a love for music.
Yeah.
And it's just like your whole body, your whole essence, your whole being for that time you're on stage is just about the music.
Yeah, totally. I love doing it.
Is that like, like always been in your body, or is it like?
Well, like, for example, when we were texting and, you said that you had about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I went back in my house and played piano.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. What'd you play, if you don't mind me asking?
I played this piece by a New Orleans composer by the name of Gottschalk. He was a 19th century romantic composer. Real flashy, kind of like Chopin or Liszt or something like that.
Say that name again.
Gottschalk.
Gottschalk.
Yeah.
So cool. New Orleans?
New Orleans, but this is in like the 19th century where he went to Europe to study and came back. He was not like Professor Longhair.
Gotcha.
But he brought in a lot of those Caribbean elements that is kind of like part of the core of New Orleans music.
Do you find that there's been sort of a resurgence in pianos in musical acts?
I don't know. It's
fair.
funny. It's like, I'm kind of in my own musical world. I don't listen to pop radio. Most of what I listen to is like, I listen to a lot of Louisiana public radio.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on.
But I mean, you don't, what I'm trying to say though is that I'm starting to see, especially in the local scene, more and more bands get on stage with a piano.
Yeah, I suppose so. When I think back, to like the 90s, it was like guitar.
Yeah.
Guitar, bass, drums, maybe two guitars.
By adding a piano, it adds so much more depth.
I sure like it.
Yeah. So what is it about the piano that sort of anchors in the musical piece?
Well, a piano can certainly lay down the chord changes. It's a percussive instrument. It adds a different tone to a guitar. It's nice to have those different types of sounds.
It opens up a whole world of possibilities. Mm-hmm. Because like the high notes and the low notes on a keyboard are like what?
They're
way higher or lower range than any musical instrument on the stage.
Yes.
And like how important it is to match the tone of the piano to somebody's voice.
When I'm playing with somebody, like a vocalist, like you're talking about, the main thing that I'm going to think about is making sure that like my volume is supporting, but not drowning out a vocalist. So that's my main thought.
But like, if you let's say, for example, you have the difference between like Norma Sylvester and Miss V,
Uh-huh.
right? Because they sing in two different keys, obviously.
Right.
So do you have to change sort of like the key that you play in the piano? That's
Well,
sort of
you
match the key of the singer.
you absolutely have to match the key of the singer. You know, it's like there are certain songs that I play in different keys with. I played it's a Billy Preston song. It doesn't matter, but I do it with 3 different bands, and each band does it in a different key. And you have to play it in the same key as the singer. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about Norman Sylvester versus Miss V. You know, if I'm playing with Norman, I would say that it's going to be more bluesy, but Miss V has a little bit of jazz in there.
Yeah. Interesting. So not only are you incorporating the key of the musician, you're also paying attention to sort of their stylistic leanings so that your keys match the stylistic piece as well as the key of the singer.
Yeah, I feel like definitely the styles kind of should match.
It's amazing. And all of this you're keeping track of while you're on stage, keeping track of everything that you've got going on stage.
Yeah.
Ah, that is awesome. So what bands are you currently in now?
So I play with a group called Toulouse Cajun and Zydeco Band.
Say that one more time.
Toulouse Cajun and Zydeco Band.
Just have the coolest names for all the bands that you were in.
Yeah.
I just think that's just the coolest name. Okay.
Yeah, I play in the Ty Curtis Band. I play with Queasy Gumbo. I play with Bayou Boys, Vintage Soul, Soul Cookin'. I play with a band called the Portland Family Band, Res Electrics, Crystal Lane and the Hurt. I play in a band called the Electric Stomp.
Oh, interesting. Is electric? What is that one?
So there was a songwriter named, well, he went by Big E. His name's Eric Schweiderman.
Oh.
A singer-songwriter, but he had a regular slot at the Laurel Thirst, and they, with a band, and they did all of his material. Had it for years. And then he got a job that he couldn't refuse in Las Vegas and moved. So we wanted to keep the slot. So what we decided to do was to do his material, but with us doing the songs and us singing the songs. So from Big E and the Stomp, we became the Electric Stomp. And that is mostly original material, either by Eric or by sometimes one of us.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
To check that out. That was one I wasn't on my radar until just.
Yeah, it's the last Saturday of the month. Happy hour from 6 to 8. Free.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Check that out. Where can people go to follow what you got going on?
You just have to know. I'm a terrible promoter.
But so like, can people find you on Facebook?
Well, you can find me on Facebook, but
Yeah.
I don't promote a lot of shows, but I can tell you when I play.
Yeah.
On Sundays, we play at a place called Spirits Pub with Bayou Boys. We play from 5 to 8. It's a free show. Monday, we have a different iteration of Bayou Boys. We have Jimmy Russell playing guitar and Edwin Coleman III playing drums. And Tevis Hodge opens for us. Great Dobro
He's
player.
good too.
Yeah, so we play there on Mondays. On Wednesdays, the first Wednesday of the month, we play with Queasy Gumbo at the Laurel Thirst. And on the last 2 Wednesdays of the month, we play at the Blue Diamond. The second to last with Vintage Soul, the last one with Soul Cookin'. And then Family Band, these are all Laurel Thirst shows. Family Band plays first Friday. Res Electrics play first Saturday. Crystal Lane typically plays the second Saturday, although we're playing tomorrow, the Laurel Thirst. And then Electric Stomp's the last Saturday of the month. And then I play at the Chapel Pub every Thursday.
If you haven't had a chance to check out Steve, check him out. He's really good. So I guess, because we're winding down with time, we've already been almost an hour. if you were to say something to like people listening about music and why music is so important for us as a people, what would you say?
I think that music is therapy. You know, I think when people come to our shows, it makes them feel better about life. I think that it's a deep part of our psyche. You know, we've been playing music for tens of thousands of years. You know, we're just kind of, and it brings us together as people. I think music's good for you. I mean, it's hard to find somebody that doesn't like music.
Yeah. It's one of those universal acceptors where it doesn't care who you are, what your lifestyle is, what you believe in. Music is universal for everyone.
Yeah, I had this unique experience when I was in college where I was teaching at this international symposium, a music symposium. We were doing handbells. We had this small quartet of us that did this really interesting style of handbell ringing. But our class, half of them were Japanese, half of them were Korean. But with music, you can show something, you can demonstrate something, and somebody who doesn't even speak your language can pick up on what it is.